Hello and welcome to this video about the new landed cost module. In this demonstration, I'm gonna give you a quick overview about the features and functionalities of the landed cost module. The landed cost module has been introduced to Dynamics 365 for supply chain management since 2021 release, with the objective to provide accurate and timely cost estimate for overhead landed cost. And at the same time, it's increased the financial and logistical visibility into the extended supply chain. The landed cost module is managed by a feature management. So in order to get started and work with the module, you need first to activate the landed cost feature from the feature management workspace. Actually, the landed cost module has lots of features and functionality. However, I'm gonna focus on two main capabilities of the landed cost on this slide, where the landed cost module enables the organization to define and track each segment of the goods in transit journey, beginning at the supplier's warehouse and continuing to the shipping dock through the freight forwarder and eventually to the destination warehouse. The landed cost module can also help the organization to manage and predict the item cost by defining automatic cost calculation, thereby improving pricing decision making and reducing the administration and costing errors. Now let's move to an end-to-end scenario and see how this can be managed by the landed cost module. I have prepared the simple scenario. It's a journey from Ningbo, China to Auckland, New Zealand port. It's estimated that the journey will take around 27 days. The goods will be shipped in a single container and in a single voyage. I have a simple estimated cost. I have two codes. The first one is freight, where the freight cost will be calculated on a quantity basis where where each piece or each unit will cost $10, and the custom code, it will be calculated on a percentage basis where equal to 5% of the entire line amount. Now let's map this scenario into the landed cost concepts and terminology. The journey from Ningbo, China to Auckland, New Zealand, we can call it as journey template. The journey templates are the routes where the goods are being moved between two locations or two ports. The journey itself, we can call it as a voyage. We can call it as a voyage or trip, travel, or a tour. So the voyage, it's a long journey, perhaps by a sea or in a space. The vessel. The vessel is the medium that is used to transport the goods. In this scenario, the vessel will be a ship. The shipping container. Shipping container is used to group goods together. This might be physically grouped, or this also might be grouped with the objective to allocate the cost on the items or the lines in this shipping container. On the journey template and during the journey, we can define and track some activities. So the activities are being defined to track each significant step of the journey between the two locations or the two ports. They can be used also to update the estimated delivery dates. The goods in transit or the GIT. The GIT refers to the merchandise and other inventory items that have been shipped by the seller but not yet received by the buyer. And when it comes to the most important part with the landed cost, which is the cost calculation, we have the cost types that identify the costs that are associated with imports such as insurance, duty, freight, and so on. The auto cost. In Dynamics 365, we can define auto cost, and it works like the trade agreement. So we can define auto cost on multiple level and in multiple combination, like with combination of a specific port. We can define the landed cost on multiple levels, like on a voyage or item and so. This is the flow of our process. Normally, the process starts by creating a voyage for a single purchase order or multiple purchase orders. It could be also transfer orders, but in this scenario, we're gonna focus first on the purchase order process. Then we'll see how we're gonna track the goods in transit and inventory tracking using the inventory tracking center, and then we'll physically receive the goods, and then we'll post the actual invoice of the landed cost. Normally, in the international purchasing, the custom and duties landed cost invoices might takes time until the vendor will record and issue the actual invoice. And also, it's normal that it might have some differences between the estimated cost and the actual cost. So I expect that some adjustments will be posted. We'll see how these adjustments will update and reevaluate the inventory cost. Now it's the time of the application. Let's have a look how this process works in Dynamics 365 for supply chain management in a quick demo. Okay, so I'll try in this demonstration to combine between the landed cost capabilities and the process using this single and simple purchase order. Multiple purchasing scenario could be handled using the landed cost module like the normal or local purchasing where the process starts by creating a simple purchase order and then confirm the order, physically receive the on hand or the goods direct to the final location, record and track the landed cost, post the purchase order invoice, and post the final or the actual landed cost invoice. But when it comes to imports or international purchasing, normally it's a long journey that might take days or even months until the goods or the inventory will be received at our final warehouses. So since the seller will deliver the inventory and until we received this inventory in our warehouses, we need to track this goods in transit. So I have created this simple purchase order for this item. I'm gonna receive this at warehouse 80. It's only one piece where the unit price is 100. And the important point here, in order to differentiate between the orders that require goods in transit tracking and the normal orders, it's the Incoterm or the delivery term. So navigating here to the header and then delivery, you should find the delivery terms. I specified here the delivery term free on board. If we click on the free on board, it will open up the terms of delivery, and you will notice that a new option has been introduced. It's goods in transit management. When this option is equal to yes, so after posting the purchase order invoice, a goods in transit order will be created. Now let's go back to our purchase order. I have already confirmed this purchase order, and the next step is to create the voyage. I can create the voyage using this shortcut here from the purchase order. Navigate to purchase tab and then landed cost and then create new voyage. Also, I can create the voyage from the landed cost module. And when it comes to multiple purchase orders or multiple transfer orders that should be combined in a single voyage, we should use this inquiry from the landed cost module. But in case of single purchase order, we can use this shortcut. So this is the voyage number has been picked from the number sequence. And then I should specify here the description. It's demo, goods in transit. And then there are some multiple useful fields for tracking the shipment, like the booking transfer, the external voyage ID, the mode of delivery, the shipping company, and so on. So here, this is the booking transfer and the vessel. If you are moving the goods using your own goods, so you need to specify the vessel from this predefined list. But if the goods are being moved using the vendor vessels, so it's not necessary to select a specific vessel, but you can also mention here the vessel ID from the vendor. And then the journey template. The journey template, it's important as we discussed earlier in the slides. It's important to provide the estimated delivery dates, and also it's useful for providing a good picture or a good understanding about the journey legs and the journey activities. This journey template from Ningbo, China to Melbourne, Australia. I'll select this and then click OK. So now the voyage editor will open up. Here in the voyage editor, it has been already filtered using this purchase order. You can remove the filter in case that you have multiple purchase orders that you need to combine in this voyage. So just apply some filters. Order will be appear here, and here is the order lines. Let's select this order line and then add this to the staging list. View the staging list, and here adding the staging list to the shipping container. So probably you will have some lines from the orders that have been added to the voyage. You can add these lines into a single container or a multiple container. Let's select this line, add to a new shipping container, like the vessel. If you are moving or storing the goods using your own container, you can select the container here. Otherwise, you can just mention the container ID from the vendor. Another important point also, which is the shipping container type. The shipping container type is useful when it comes to calculate or predict the item cost using the voyage cost using the shipping container type. So we can define some multiple scenarios or cost calculation scenarios using different shipping container type. And then let's click OK. So now we have created the voyage. We have created shipping container. Let's navigate to the voyage. Here with the voyage form, this is the voyage ID and the voyage status. It's still created. We have also here some information like the ports, like the journey. We have the voyage line and where the status of the line is still, with the status of the purchase order is still open order. Now let's navigate to General tab, Inquiries, and review the Tracking Center inquiry. Here with the Tracking Center inquiry, you should find the journey template legs and the associated activities of these legs. So in this journey template, I have 4 legs where it starts from load cargo, and then the journey itself and the custom process and the local transportation. And if you see here, for example, the journey itself, it's linked to 2 activities: the review the shipping documents, and the second activity is the sale process itself. Also, there is here the start date, estimated end date of each activities, estimated days, and actual days. We can apply some filter using shipping container in case there are multiple containers associated to this voyage. Also, there is tracking center inquiry in the landed cost module with different view. You can track items or the shipping container with different combination. Now let's update the start date of the first activity and the first leg. Let's say we started this journey today, then click OK. So the estimated days has been retrieved. So the estimated start date and estimated end date has been calculated based on these days. And then let's try to update the actual end date of the first activity or the first leg. It has been estimated that this activity will be ended at on 9th of July. Let's say this has been ended today. So here the actual days are 0. And also if you see the latest step has been recalculated, the date has been recalculated. And if we go back to the purchase order and to the delivery tab, see here the confirmed delivery date has been also updated according to this date. Also, these activities are being linked with status. So ending every activity from here will also automatically update the voyage status. So if we just refresh, now the status is GIT, which is goods in transit. Now the second important query, which is the cost inquiry. And here we have 2 cost records. These 2 records have been created from the auto cost calculation that I have configured against this journey template, where the custom Estimated cost is 5 Egyptian pound, which is the 5% of the line amount, and the freight will cost 10 Egyptian pound, which is the 10 Egyptian pound per piece. I can go back here to the voyage cost. I can edit this estimated cost. I can manually add new cost like this. Let's select the cost code of insurance, for example. And here the method, it's let's say percent as well. And that's 10% of the, sorry, of the line amount. And then click save. The cost code is somehow like the charges code that we have in D365 for supply chain management. It debit the item. This means that the item cost will be increased and credit the vendor. This will credit the landed cost vendor. So until we receive the landed cost vendor, the cost will be posted to the clearing account. There are clear account for every cost code. And then go back. Right now, with the imports purchase order, it's normal that the invoices, the vendor invoice will be posted before we're gonna to physically receive the goods. So in order to do that, we need to post an invoice for this purchase order. We can post the invoice for purchase order from the voyage form. We can also post the invoice from the purchase order normal form. Let's post the invoice from the voyage form. So this is the vendor invoice. This is the purchase order vendor invoice. And then let's click post. And here we see that the status it's in transit. This means that goods in transit order has been created. We cannot check the goods in transit order for this voyage from here, inquires then goods in transit. There is also another inquiry in the landed cost module that shows all the goods in transit orders. So let's see this goods in transit order. We can receive the goods in transit order directly from this form. But also the customers who are using the WMS process or warehouse management process can receive the goods in transit order using the warehouse management mobile app. Before receiving the order, let's check first the on hand. And the on hand, you will see here that we have the physically inventory one piece and the 80 warehouse goods in transit. I have to mention that with the goods in transit, you will see that a brand new warehouse type has been added to the application, which is the goods in transit warehouse. This goods in transit warehouse is being linked to the warehouse. So here, this is warehouse 80 is linked to goods in transit warehouse 80-GIT. The type is goods in transit. So now the goods in transit is physically reserved and physical inventory in goods in transit. Now let's get started to receive the goods in transit using the warehouse management mobile app. So here in the warehouse management mobile app, inbound, and then I have created a menu item for goods in transit process. I have two menu items. The first one is the goods in transit receiving, and then the goods in transit final put away. Let's get started from the goods in transit receiving. In order to receive the goods in transit, you need to mention first the voyage number. This information should be available here in the goods in transit order. So let's select the voyage number and then the shipping container and then the item number, which is 10211, and finally the quantity, which is one piece. And then let's click OK. Now the work has been completed, and if we navigated to the all works from the warehouse management module, you should find here a new work that has been created to move the goods from the default receiving location to the final put away location, which is here B-001. This is indeed according to the location directive setup that you have. So let's go back. to the warehouse management app. Sorry, goods in transit put away. I can receive this purchase order, this goods in transit order using the work ID or also the license plate, like normal warehouse process. Let's copy the work ID and then confirm the put location. If you go back now to the goods in transit form, you will see that the order has been removed from the form because this has been already received. And if we check the view received, you will see that the vendor back, the order back again. Now, if you go back to the purchase order, you will find that the order has been invoiced. Let's review quickly the invoice voucher. So the invoice voucher, this is the landed cost clearing account, has been credited by 25 Egyptian pound, and vendor balance will be also credited by 100, which is the purchase order amount, and the cost of purchase material invoice has been debited with 125. This is the purchase order cost plus the landed cost. Now it's the time of posting the purchase order invoice. Let's navigate to the invoice journal, and then new. It's a normal AP invoice journal. This is the transaction date. This is the landed cost vendor. And let's specify the invoice date. Let's say this is today, the invoice ID, and the credit amount. So the voyage cost, if you recall, let's check from here, it's 25 Egyptian pound. This is the estimated cost. However, the actual cost is still zero. And usually the actual invoice might have some differences compared to the estimated cost. So in order to record the landed cost actual invoice, we have to specify here the vendor invoice, let's say 30 Egyptian pound. It was estimated that 25 Egyptian pound, but the actual landed cost is 30 Egyptian pound. And in order to settle against these transactions, let's click on function, then select voyage cost. We can select from multiple cost area, but in this scenario, we have the cost on the voyage level. And then let's select our voyage, which is this one, and click OK. These are the landed cost records that we have. Now we can select these records manual for settlement. We can mark all, and this will mark it all. But the point right now, we still have 5 Egyptian pounds remaining to be settled. We can distribute this amount using the distribute function and allocate this or distribute this against a specific cost type, or we can also update the allocate amount manually like this. So it was estimated that the custom cost will cost 5 Egyptian pound. This is the estimated value, but the actual invoice is 10 Egyptian pound. This will create a journal. This will credit the vendor with 30 Egyptian pound and will debit the landed cost accrual account. Let's post to the invoice. And I check the cost inquiry. And see now the actual cost amount has been updated. There is for sure some adjustments that have been added to the inventory. I'm not sure if it's. Let's navigate to the purchase order and I check the purchase order transactions. So here the purchase order transaction where the cost amount is 130. This is 100 of the purchasing price and 25 estimated cost plus the adjustment cost. So the final cost is 130. This is almost all about the purchasing process. We have created a purchase order. We have mentioned the purchase order here is linked to a delivery terms, which is FOB. We have recorded the landed cost post the purchase order invoice, and we have received the goods in transit order and then posted the actual EP invoice. Now let's have a look in another process with the transfer order. It's almost the same process. Let's create quickly a transfer order. So I'm gonna create here a transfer order from warehouse 10, sorry, warehouse 10 to warehouse 30, and then add lines. Item is 10209, and then let's click save. Now let's create a voyage for this transfer order. In order to create a voyage for this transfer order, let's navigate to voyages, then all voyages, and then click new. This will open up the create voyage. Let's transfer order demo and the vessel ID, and let's click OK. So here's the process. This is the voyage editor. So we can apply here a filter for our transfer order. This has retrieved the transfer order. It's a single line. Let's add this to the staging, like the same process, and view staging list. Add to shipping container. Let's specify the shipping container ID. Let's click OK. And let's open the voyage. We can also create some automatic cost calculation like we had. Let's have a quick look on how we can define some. This is the costing setup. This is the auto cost. We can define also some auto cost for the transfer order level. I'll try to create another single video for the configuration process. Let's see this quick. Okay, landed cost, then costing setup, auto cost. This is the auto cost form, so we can define some auto cost on the transfer order line. This could be for a specific item on a specific warehouse to warehouse and so. So in this scenario, it will specify the landed cost manual. So voyage cost, new. Let's select, for example, local transportation. Let's say this is on a quantity basis per piece. Let's say 50 Egyptian pound, and then click save. And back to the voyage. Again, like the purchase order, we can also receive and ship the transfer order from the voyage form. So here is the ship transfer order and receive the transfer order. So we can ship and receive the transfer order from here, or we can ship and receive the transfer order from the transfer order normal form. Let's ship the transfer order from here. I'll select all the line just to make it quick. I'll also auto receive the transfer order. So now if we go back to the transfer order, you will see that the transfer order has been received. And back in again to the voyage, let's see the transaction. I'll focus here on the inventory transaction and the adjustments that have been occurred. If I check here the transactions in financial voucher, you will see here was the physical cost of the shipping transaction, this one, and then it has been increased by adjustment of 50 Egyptian pound, which is the landed cost entry. And if we go here and check this financial impact, let's check from the voyage cost. This is the landed cost record inquiry estimate adjustment, and then voucher. You will see here that this has debit the inventory. It has increased the inventory cost by 50 Egyptian pound, and it increased the landed cost accruals. That's it. So this is also the process about the transfer order. I'd like to thank you for joining this session. I hope it was useful for you. I'll try to also create another video for the configuration. Thank you.